phones for a live stream, the audio got cut off. I don't know if it was at the time or afterwards, but when I actually started saying something really important about using cannabis and growing cannabis, all the audio was just gone. So I'm going to rely upon somebody passing through to let me know that I've got audio or you've got audio, and then if it drops out, you need to tell me. But I was live streaming earlier, and somebody who goes by was commenting under the same name but two different profiles. They're both called Jake Clark, one with an E, one without an E. And I have a history of your comments, Jake, and none of them are very nice. And so if you turn up and you start commenting, I'm going to block you, because they threatened me. Their handle they're using at the moment is Child Protection Officer Jake. And you've made a lot of really unsavory comments on earlier videos, which I wasn't necessarily aware of at the time. And then you said that you were going to report me for a welfare check to social services or to the police, which is harassment, and it's also it should be a hate crime. You can't just report people to social services because you feel like it, because it's actually bullying, and it should be a hate crime. I don't know why you don't even have to give your name or anything, and they have to follow it up. Well, I am working with community mental health services. I spoke with somebody earlier, and we have made an appointment. Finally, we've been able to agree on a place and a time and a date. And so that's going ahead because I desperately need help accessing the general health services. And because these psychiatric diagnoses at the top of the page, when I go and see a GP, they switch on my medical history and they see these major heavyweight psychiatric diagnoses at the top, and then they just screen me for mental health, whatever I've gone in for. If I've gone in for pain in my pelvis, if I've gone in not feeling very well with my chest, I just get a psychiatric screening. And I've stopped going in for these appointments now. I've stopped asking for help. The last time I was seen by a doctor, I had to pay privately, pay extra to give a sputum sample, was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia, for which had been ill a long time, had 2 courses of antibiotics, and one of which I must say, the one that the computer system recommended, is contraindicated with another medication that I use daily, and had a risk of like heart arrhythmias with using those two combined. So I don't know why the computer system recommended to give me an antibiotic that was actually dangerous for me to use alongside regular medication, but it did. And I don't have the money to go back, but I'm pretty sure I've still got infection at the bottom of my lungs. I just had that illness for so long, and what preempted it was so bad. And this goes to show it's so difficult for me to get actual attention from at the point of entry. So I need the mental health services to support me, because if I have a mental health worker there with me, then there's no point in them doing a mental health assessment. They need to assess me physically. So let's move that down there, hope it will stop. So I just thought I will come back and live stream just to annoy you, quite frankly. If you're going to be an asshole and say that you're going to make a welfare report to police or social services, you're going to pop up. I'm going to block you. I'm going to have to make you not interact with me. You've made some vile comments in previous live streams. And there's plenty of good people that do support me here, some of which I'm in contact with. You know, there's no need for it. There's no need for bullying, whether it's mental health bullying or rare diseases bullying or bullying of women, or just, for whatever. There isn't, if somebody's bullied for being fat, it's not because they're fat, it's because they're sat next to a bully. That's the problem. The problem's not that they're fat, or if someone's going to bully you for any reason, whatever the reason is, the reason really is you're sitting next to a bully and they are bullies, and whatever the thing is about you that's different or unique, then they're going to bully you about that. And it's not a laughing matter. You can't just be phoning around doing welfare checks on people. It should be a criminal offence. You should be made to give your name. Why are they allowed to do that anonymously? Come on, seriously, think about it. How come you can make an anonymous welfare check? you know? And if you were living next to someone that you suspected was sexually abusing children, would you be brave enough to report them? Because I had to do that in 2021, but I had to wait until I moved away until I was able to do that. And no, it wasn't anonymous. I gave my name. So why are you allowed to anonymously phone police or social services and claim that there's a welfare need and waste police time and do that all from home, all anonymously? You don't need to, you know, because this happened in 2020 and the person claimed that I'd taken a drug overdose, and that was just plainly untrue. And then after that, I had mental health services knocking my door after working with them in Hartford for 5 long years and having 3 years of that, telling me they wanted to discharge me, and me saying, no, 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 wait. Eventually gets discharged, moved to another city, and then get referred back because somebody claims that I've taken an overdose. And you just do it anonymously. No come back on you. It's very wrong. You should not be allowed to report people anonymously because you just get away with telling lies, and it's not acceptable. So I've come back here just to be annoying. And if you're in the chat, get in the chat. I'm going to block you. I've screenshot your stuff. I've seen the other rubbish that you've been commenting on my live streams. It's completely unnecessary. And who are you as well? There's no, you know, you're probably using a fake name. You don't put your face to it. There's no profile picture. It's despicable, actually. It's just bullying. And, you know, nobody needs that in their life. And you need to get a life. While we're here, let's have a look at the amazing knitting that's been happening in Hartford. There is a group of people, I don't know that they're all women, but they yarn bomb, they organise themselves, and every couple of times a year, I think, they put these beautiful displays in central Hartford. We have one at Christmas time, or if there's a special occasion, like they knit and they knit and they knit, and then they bomb the square as it is at the moment. They've had some amazing displays. This one looks about the oceans, and there's like a ship over there, and there's ducks behind me in the sea covering the benches, and then there's a little lean towards environmental concerns because they have loads of plastic in the display as well, so it's showing you about the amount of plastics in the environment that ends up in the sea, unfortunately. And there is a huge scam around plastic recycling because it can't really be recycled, and a lot of it's in our bodies. So let's have a look at that. And then I'm kind of hoping that you will turn up, Jake, because I want to have this out with you. You know, it's a disgusting level of harassment, quite honestly. It's not acceptable for you to just, you know, be making threats. Essentially that was a threat to me, to tell me that you were going to report me to who? The police, the social services. Let's try and get a good view of this. I mean, I can spin my camera around actually. Try and respect other people's privacy. See how they've done this. Amazing displays. There's a shopping trolley. All the bits of plastic in there. But now I'll try and get an angle where we have a bit better sunshine. And there's over here we have a ship, a boat, and these beautiful displays they make. Aren't they amazing? And they make the bench so colourful, so amazing. And we'll go and speak to the ladies that are here that are doing this, and they just do it so consistently, a few times a year. And I think everyone in Hartford's really indebted to them for making the town more colourful and a nicer place to live. And I'm sure they've made lots of friends through doing it. So this part of the display, we've got all the bits of rubbish in there, which is really well done. It's like really And here we've got beautiful swans in the knitting, blues, greens, flowers, silver, all their little baby cygnets following them. Isn't that actually the best thing ever? Yarn voyage. We have all the people in the boat with the safety, what are we calling that? I forgot what that's called. Isn't that just gorgeous? So beautiful. I'm so in awe of all this work that they do, and the Christmas display, you should have seen how actually amazing it was. And then one of the most amazing things I thought about it, aside from all the knitting, is they've condensed the story of, I think it was Cinderella, into about 12 or 15 cards, which had one brief sentence on each one. So they've condensed the entire story down into these sort of 12, they've condensed an entire fairy story into 12 these short sentences. It's just very good how they did that. That's quite an art to condense something down just so that you're telling an entire story like that. I don't want to infringe on their privacy though, so they're not got any permissions to be filming anyone, but they are so good. The Rivers of Hartford Yarn Bomb. Aren't they amazing? Secret Society. And they're amazing. So that was the peaceful interlude. Oh look, we've got more. A little rock pool, I believe. Isn't that amazing? So I want to have this out with you, Mr. Jake Clark, if that is your real name. You know, you've got two profiles you had going on there earlier, one with an E on the end of Clark, and one without. It's just really unacceptable. Any bullying is unacceptable. There's no good reason for it either. You know, you're just taking a pop at someone from a position where it won't come back on you. It really shouldn't be allowed to make anonymous welfare calls claiming that somebody has done this or they've done that. You shouldn't be allowed to do it anonymously. You should have to put your name, your address and your phone number behind it, because when it turns out to be false, it should come back on your head. So the fact that people can do this at the moment anonymously is wrong. You know, it's really wrong, and it's unnecessary stress, and it should be classified as assault because you're making a threat against me and no grounds for it. How can you say I look like I need a welfare check? Did you not like what I was talking about? I was talking about female genital mutilation, folic acid in fortified flour. These things, you don't want anyone to talk about those, or this is what I'm saying, you don't need a reason. You just bully. If I was fat, it would be because I was fat. No, it would be because you're a bully. Is it because I'm female? No, it's because you're a bully. Is it because I have a mental health disability? No, it's because you're a bully. Is it because I have unseen disabilities? No, it's because you're a bully. You should not be allowed to make anonymous calls to the police or to the social services claim that someone's life is in danger and they're in need of an immediate welfare check. You should not be allowed to do that. Not anonymously. Not anonymously. Put your name to it. Put your phone number to it. Put your address to it. But don't just go around making claims that you can't substantiate. Nothing comes back on you. It's a hate crime. Bullying. Pick your reason. The reason is you're a bully. You know, you're doing it from a safe distance. You know your name, phone number, photo, nothing attached to it. You know where I live. Right, so I phoned 101 and I was like, somebody claims that they're making a welfare check call on me. Here I am. Mr. Enoch England says, hey beautiful, hope you are well. Well, I did speak with social services about an hour ago, and I said, look, I really need your help getting just getting in through the door to see a doctor, because every time I go to them, they are just looking at these heavyweight psychiatric diagnoses at the top of my medical records, and they're not seeing me, they're not hearing me, they're not examining me, they're not referring me, but they are doing mental health assessments. And I'm not there for that. I don't need them to check on, like, why have they criminalized me? You know, as if there's something wrong with me. Well, there's a lot wrong with my body and I need support. So we are set up to see each other next Friday. And I'm hoping that they will come in and be a support for me with the GP. Try and get some of these referrals done. Although the thing is, I am scared of these surgeons now. Yes, keep the faith. I've been so slack at doing my prayers and other daily spiritual kind of private devotional things recently. I just took a bit of a nosedive and I've spent a lot of time indoors, a lot of time alone. And there's been so much press about despicable people. That says repetitive. It's back to front. My repetitive news feed. And I'm having stuff going missing from my home. A pair of glass spectacles, you know, like prescription glasses, my Baha'i burial ring. It's almost as if someone's got access to my home from keeping keys when they were lodging, and then, you know, there's only so many times I can change the locks. Somebody called Caleb kept the key for downstairs. That's a security breach because those keys can only be cut by the managing agents. And I wrote to them and I said, could you replace it at the lock downstairs? And they didn't. So I wonder how much that key was sold for. You know, because when, to be honest, when the intelligence services, whoever it is that they're working for, their private client, when they get people to interfere, they use people in my immediate vicinity, like my immediate circle. You know? Times. He told me that the key fell off the keychain when he was out running. Bullshit. If I showed you the key, you can see clearly that that doesn't fall off a keychain. It's the only one you can't get cut. I couldn't even get one cut. And he kept that. And he was paying for groceries by American Express card. Who in the world is on welfare and paying for groceries with an American Express? A little camel. Yeah, I've done that. Now, funny you should mention that, Mr. Enoch. I have left my phone at home with the video running. And the last time I did it, the phone was plugged in. And when I got in, it had stopped recording and it shouldn't have done that. It's never done that before. And it's never stopped recording on its own. It just carries on recording. But there was the last time I bothered doing it because I thought, you know from WikiLeaks that a video can be edited remotely. So if somebody went in there and knocked it off from recording, all you need to do is cut the last 5 minutes off of it. I shouldn't have done that. You know, if you turn your phone on as an experiment, press record on the video, leave, come home, 6 hours later, it'll still be recording, especially if it's plugged in. It doesn't time out or anything. So then that became a bit pointless, didn't it, to leave that recording when I went out facing my front door. On this occasion, it was in my bedroom. It hadn't moved, it was still plugged in, it hadn't fallen down or anything. Obviously, ring doorbell would be good. And I need to change the lock. It's been changed before. But I have this, like almost every single lodger, apart from one who was Nigerian, they kept keys. They refused to give keys back. And And I'll be honest with you, my apartment is not really for sharers. It's for a couple or it's for one person. And as soon as I'm in a position where I'm letting out a room, I'm giving up my private space. Become a full-time landlady. And I'm not into it at all. Like, I'm really not into it. And I need my space to be able to move around at whatever time I want, use the bathroom whenever I want, use the kitchen whenever I want, go in and out whenever I want, stay in whenever I want. And I don't really need the hassle of having someone sharing my space, especially when you can't really put a price on it. I was having to charge £800 a month. That does include all the bills, by the way. And it's not every 4 weeks, it's like every month, right, per calendar month, which is on par for what everyone else is charging in Hertford to let rooms in homes. And I think it's a lot of money, but it doesn't really, reimburse me for the fact that I've had to give up my entire privacy to live with somebody else. You know, and I'm not staying there for free. I've got management company fees to pay, which is rocking on for £140 a month. Gas and electric's £140 a month. Before I got all my council tax sorted out, and I'm only paying £13 a month now, but it used to be £256 for 2 people to live there. You've got water rates. So, you know, what gives? It's like, I would much be happier to be charging £600 a month, including all bills. But it's not I just have to give up my whole personal space there, don't I, then? Literally, you give up all your personal space. And I've got to be honest, you know, I think renters, sharers need to have their own bathrooms. And if they don't, it's not really much good. It's just better that way. It just is. When I was renting in Liverpool, every single room in that house had their own private bathroom, and it's better. So it's like Jake didn't feel like showing his face on this live stream. Jake Clark making disgusting comments, like really vile comments about how I smell, about basically calling me a prostitute, really unnecessary. And then earlier today said that they were phoning some authorities to make a welfare check. And it just blows my mind that people are allowed to do that anonymously, and so they have no potential kickback onto themselves at all. It doesn't cost them anything to make those allegations, and it's so wrong. What's to stop you, if you're genuine, from giving your name, your phone number? If you can't do that, it's scammy, and it should be hate crime. It should be classified under bullying, and you should be convicted in a court, because this is wrong, and it's threatening, and it's disgusting. And I'm on my own, and I am sick. There's no disputing. There's no two ways about, am I sick or am I not? Yes, I am. But even if there was not a thing physically wrong with me, and I had a mental health problem, then that's mental health bullying. You're bullying this person because you identify them as having a mental health problem. It doesn't give you the right, anonymously, from wherever you are in the world, behind your computer screen, to start making phone calls to the authorities, claiming this person needs a welfare check. It should be on your head how you can get away with doing it anonymously. I don't know why it's allowed. Put a little cam on, keep memory on the phone. Well, I was only out for it stopped filming after 45 minutes, that thing. And I always delete them when I come in. I just give them a quick check over and I delete them, because I try to not let the situation bother me. And sometimes I think the only time I've brought problems online is when it turns out that they actually, you know, it was me, I misplaced something or whatever. But But it's been a long time that my prescription spectacles have been missing. It's been a long time that my silver Baha'i burial ring has been missing. The dry herb vaporizer that I bought last year has never shown up again. I had to buy a new one. The necklace that my daughter sent to me, it's not worth anything in money, it's not even silver, but that was almost predictable that was going to go missing, and that's never showed up again. And in terms of my rings, I have a particular place where I keep my rings, on a little donkey with ears, so you can hang the rings off of his tail and his ears. Considering that I always keep my rings in one place, it was very noticeable when that Baha'i burial ring went missing. And the things that are going missing slowly are not really a surprise to me, but kind of one by one over a long period of time. It's been a year. There's obviously no signs of anyone breaking in, but one by one, these things that are valuable to me have disappeared and not showed up again. My apartment's not big. I don't have a lot of stuff. I tend to keep things in the same place so I know where they are. So when they go missing, it's quite obvious. And you probably think I'm crazy, just change the lock. And it's like, well, here's the deal. I have changed the lock a couple of times. It's involved me asking my brother for help, because I've had a number of lodgers live with me. And then the last time I bought a new lock, it turns out I think I bought the wrong one. And I need power tools, and I don't have power tools. And I'm really just such a lone ass person. I don't have people to help me, because when I move, the thing is, when you are on paper unemployed and sick and stuff, people they want to move on, they want to do other stuff, they want to go out, they don't want to hang around and be like, oh, you haven't got any money, or you let me down, you didn't go out anywhere. Who do you meet just being ill in your room anyway? So then this isolation thing is really bad, because that's what makes you a target then when you're isolated and without help. And I meet people from time to time, and they come in my place and they go, oh, I can do this, I can fix that, and they never do. And I got to the point where I told them, could you just shush please, because you keep saying you could do this and you could do that, but unless you're going to do it, don't, just be quiet please, because they never do it. They come in, they go, oh, I'm able to do that, I can fix that. And I go, well, yeah, when you've had another drink, I'm sure you'll do it then. So, but it is nerve-wracking, having with mental health services, that you don't know who you're dealing with, and they've read notes and notes and notes about you, and you don't know necessarily what's in those notes. You're not there to challenge or correct anything that's wrong. And I know that there's stuff wrong in my notes, so I've been given an abridged version, and it was almost like a complete inversion of the truth. They were saying how close I was to my dad, that I didn't get on with my mum, and that's like a complete inversion. My mum was one of my best friends. It's this is the problem with these health records, is they're holding information that could be highly inaccurate, and mad things like when I saw a rheumatologist privately, and he wrote Ehlers-Danlos multiple times, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, in the report, but at the top of the report the secretary had put benign joint hypermobility. That is a very, very, very different thing. And if it was benign, why was I in physiotherapy from the age of 12, 13? Why was I sitting in front of a GP at 14 with chronic joint pain and chronic fatigue? How is it benign? And I'm telling you, it's painful, right? But this was all based upon, I had my hand on the door handle to leave, and he turns to me and he says, do you sublux? I didn't know what he was talking about. I went, no, what's that? And he was like, oh, never mind, bye-bye. Now, the third component of diagnosis, following physical examination and patient history or family history, is that you have to go for a blood test to find out if they can actually pin any of the 13 Ehlers-Danlos types on you. They have to do that. And the Camden NHS wrote back and said, no, we don't test for hypermobility spectrum disorder. I'm like, well, apart from the fact that's written at the top of the letter, if you actually read the letter, he mentions Ehlers-Danlos syndrome on about 4 different occasions. So you're supposed to be testing me for the classical type, etc., but you won't do it. So that makes me look like a fraud. And even if the NHS wouldn't provide, you know, they don't want to provide people physiotherapy every week of their lives forever. Like they just, so they, you know, it's like, and it's such a crazy disease. And even though it's been found more, it's still a rare disease. And so I feel scared in the hands of these people. And, you know, especially the way that surgeon left me so fucked up. Really unnecessarily as well. You know, so even when I'm like saying I need to get them to have a look in my pelvis and essentially just save what they can save and remove what they need to remove, I'm not going to be under a general anaesthetic for that. They've put me in a twilight zone. I don't care. I'm not losing consciousness. I don't know what that guy did to me on the table last time, but it wasn't good. So, you know, they caused me concern. So, you know, and they're holding so much power in their hands, and people are corruptible. But this not getting referred thing to specialists it's like, for why? For why? How does it go back to 1995 when I'm sitting in front of a GP with my mum with chronic pain and chronic fatigue, am I being offered Prozac and not being referred to a rheumatologist and not being physically examined and not having any blood tests run? What was on my medical charts that told you instead of referring, you should offer antidepressants instead of doing a physical examination? So I think everyone has price and can be bought. And like I said to you, one does not simply lose a child prostitute. So I call foul play and have no idea what it is that they're looking at their screens. But ever since they've been looking at heavyweight mental health diagnoses, they don't hear me. I remember one time I went to a doctor, it was living in Bristol, and I had fallen off my bike and full on smashed my patella a couple of years before. And at one point I fell off my bike and I got a thing in it, like I had to get stitches here, and my kneecap was still very large compared to the other one at that time, and it was months later, months and months and months later, like 6 months later. And he said, I can tell you for nothing, you've broken that knee. And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. And that was coming off a bike onto a hard road, like landed on my knee. And I'd gone to the GP because when I was walking downstairs, my knee was subluxing, as I now know it's called, as in it's moving around in its socket painfully because it's loose. And I mentioned that I'd smashed that patella in the past, but it was 2 years previously I smashed the patella, and I was talking about joint instability. Did she refer me to a rheumatologist? No. She sent me for an x-ray of my knee in case it was broken. No, I broke it 2 years ago, or 2 years before then. So an x-ray to find out if it was broken tells you absolutely nothing about joint hypermobility, does it? And then they say that I'm wasting their time. It's like, well, you actually listened to what I'm saying. You wouldn't have sent me for an unnecessary scan. So, but then they get affronted, you know, and this is the problem when you leave education and your starting salary is in the region of 120, 150,000 pounds a year. And, you know, you've got to admit you don't really know anything about medicine, do you? You don't know anything about nutrition. You don't really. Your drugs are shit. You're just palming antidepressants off onto everybody. You know, whereas I know other people that have been like kind of working age men, they'll get a pain in their knee or their shoulder, whatever. They've had it for a couple of weeks. They go to the doctor. Within a week, they're getting all examined up. It's crazy. So I have really zero confidence in them. And honestly, I wouldn't bother with all this advocacy to go back to them, except I can't afford to go back to the private GP and pay again to see her, which is £69, and pay again to spit in a tube to have them analyse the mucus that's coming off my chest. That's like another £120. I don't have the money to be going through all this more and more. You see on the NHS, they weren't even taking sputum samples. just automatically dishing out amoxicillin. How do you know if you're not even taking a mucus sample? And another thing, I had my tonsils I had my tonsils removed when I was like 11 or 12, and during the operation they flushed out my sinuses, and the surgeon had told my mum, and then my mum told me, that the surgeon had said it was the worst he'd ever seen. From an 11-year-old, he flushed out my sinuses and said it was the worst he'd ever seen. All of these things, they just disappear. The diagnoses of chronic sinusitis and chronic bronchitis that had been on my files since I was literally an infant. When I moved, I was like 19, they switched it to seasonal asthma. That is completely different. I'd already been diagnosed with chronic bronchitis and chronic sinusitis. Young. And then all of a sudden, oh no, you have seasonal asthma. So they can change your records, they can force you on a certain course of treatment, they can withhold treatment from you by just not referring you. So the power that's in these people's hands is already unbalanced. And come on, be honest, when they say, oh, we have this healthcare system that's the envy of the world. No, we don't. Nobody comes to the UK to use the NHS. They might come here to go to Harley Street and use the doctors down there, but that's because they're paying for it. We really, really don't have a healthcare system which is the envy of the world. So I would just leave it at that, really, because I think they're holding too much power in their hands already. And you've got to understand that they're making medications with nanobots in them. And then they know whether you've taken your pills or not. And in terms of enforcing compliance on people, like, what if you don't want to take those psychiatric drugs? What if you want to do something else? What if those psychiatric drugs are really disabling? But then they can be like, well, we can lock you up for not taking them. And for those people that gloat over it and say, well, it's for the best, it's like, how do you know? Do you know that individual person? Because these diagnoses, by and large, don't really exist in terms of blanket things. There is always an underlying physical health problem and a social health problem and possibly a major injustice. There are reasons why people break down. And unless you're going to look for the cause and address the cause, then just giving someone a blanket diagnosis does nothing. It's counterproductive. And many times people cling onto it. It might be a buffer between saying what really is going on. Instead, you can just say that you have autism, or you can just say that you have this, or you can just say that you have that. And you're not addressing the causes at all. And maybe those causes are really, really difficult. And maybe they involve other people who don't want to give the game away either. Then you're being scapegoated. And you're in hospital and you're witnessing violent crimes committed against other people. And sometimes that's a person that's been incarcerated talking absolute shit to people that work there. But that's not their first rodeo. That's the problem. That's why they're being such a shit cunt. Excuse my language, baby. It's a baby in a push tray. But a lot of the times it's the staff jumping on the person. I've seen a lot of assaults in psychiatric units of staff on top of patients, hitting patients, dragging them by the hair, dragging them by the ankles, forcing pins in their backsides. If you could see it, you would understand. And I've heard as well people that have worked there that have been like agency staff that have come from other units saying there are prisoners that are looked after better than this. They're having more time outside. They've got and there are so many psychiatrists that have a smile that they do, and I'm sorry, not sorry, they're psychopaths. A lot of them should be screened for psychopathy. And they say that they do a full physical health screening. Well, they don't. And how can you do a full physical health screening anyway? Especially if you won't listen to the concerns of your patient. But you tell them that their chronic pain is a symptom of depression. It's a symptom of mood disorder. You tell them that their joint pain is because they're overweight, when they're in actual fact overweight from the drugs that you've given them. They've shut down the body's ability to process sugar, very likely to cause diabetes, heart disease. You know, psychiatric patients, men dying in their 30s. And what's the common denominator? Well, they're pumped full of these drugs. And until you've taken one, you don't know, because there's a lot of things that are said about SSRIs, and rightly so, but less often people mention Risperdal, olanzapine, all of these myriad drugs, and how soul-crushing and destroying they are, and how often people meet that person and they think that the symptoms of the mental illness are the same thing as the effects of the drug. Do you understand? So, and it's hardcore, you know, being looked up. You can have a number done on you. I'm actually very grateful to the Radlett unit, the Swift unit in Radlett, although I've seen violence in there as well, but I think those staff members got knocked on the head. They were doing trans violence, I'll be honest with you. They were doing trans violence. There was a guy in there that wanted to be known by a certain name, and they were shit to them and saying, oh, this will make you a real man, and roughed them up and everything, and made them stay in their room, pretty much locked them in their room. But that was a number of years ago. That was like 2021, and I was in Swiftwood recently, and I think they're really solid in there. And I think if you do make a complaint, they will get rid of bad staff. But you know, there's places like the Lister and Stevenage, and you know, you have staff members in there doing 13-hour shifts, and then turning around the next morning and coming in again. And you have doctors that have way too much power, and they just see everything through that lens. Like their mental illnesses, that they see everything through the lens of mental illness, and they don't know that they have that as an illness. They don't know that they're ill, because they see everything like mental illness. And the thing that you're looking at is people with incurable illnesses, endometriosis, hypermobile spectrum disorders. They're female, and there is a huge still thing of misogyny, like mad, sad and bad, and the way that men will look at a woman who's not well and think she's dangerous or something. It's like, well, she may need some physical health care. There's no point detaining and moralizing the situation. Give her the help that she needs. And the whole history of psychiatry is so black. So, and unfortunately, one of the only groups actually has made an effort to speak out about it has been Scientologists. Well, that's a straw man if ever I saw one. So if I was going to direct anyone to learn about the history of psychiatry, I would direct them to The Minds of Men by Truth Stream Media, Erin and Melissa Dykes, and I would say go and watch that. It's about 4 hours long, but you're going to learn about little black girls and boys walking around in psychiatric hospitals miles from anywhere with wires hanging out of their brains. Yeah, wires plugged into their skull brain, walking around in the 1950s. And these drugs, you know, when they say in the future there will be drugs that will make people love their servitude and compliant, yeah, they developed them at that very time, so there was no future tense about it. And what's the antidote to akathisia, which is a common effect of these drugs, which is very subjective as well. People aren't always pacing or twitching. Well, I'll tell you what the antidote is, according to a David Healy psychiatric textbook called Psychiatric Drugs Explained that was released in the year 2000. David Healy, Healy, Psychiatric Drugs Explained. The antidote is alcohol, specifically red wine. So now we've got a situation where we've got about 1 in 10 people in the UK prescribed an antidepressant. Probably about half of them are prescribed an antipsychotic as well. And they're walking around and people think that they're mental ill. They're identifying the effect of the drugs as the mental illness, right? It's a very bad situation. And for as long as it's okay to do it to them, you know, then it's happening. And like there's no, that's not done on an individual basis. That's done on the basis of what the diagnosis is. And what does it even mean? What does it mean when I was incarcerated in 2008 after so many temporal lobe head injuries, for them to say to me that I look like I'm hearing voices, therefore they're going to write me up as having schizophrenia? What does that mean to say that I look like I'm hearing voices? And if I report that I'm not, and they shut me down, and then if I report that even if I was, it's not causing me any distress, so then you can't diagnose that. If it's not causing distress, then it's not mental illness. And I've met lots of people over the years that have been bothered by voice hearing. And I don't have that experience. Scandal, says Mr. Pickle. I didn't see your comments there. They've all stacked up now. Mr. Pickle, I'm just annoyed because somebody threatened me with making a phone call earlier for no reason to police or social services for a welfare check, which then those services have to follow up by law because they get to do that anonymously. So I said, okay, I'm going to come back and annoy you if it bothers you that much. Now the thing is about this anyway, all this health, NHS, psychiatric, is it affects so many people. You know, it'd be really nice if it was all me and I don't need to clear my name from having a psychiatric disorder. There's no shame in it anyway, but I'm just saying I think they're over-diagnosing the psychiatric diagnoses, like the disorders, and they're not screening people. They're not screening your kids properly. I mean, who knows that they can't methylate folic acid? And why do GPs give it to trying to conceive and pregnant women for free on the NHS at risk of guilt and shame if you don't take it? So do they know when they're making these prescriptions that 2/3 of people, because of their genes, because they have dirty genes, can't methylate folic acid? Do you even care? Does anyone even care that it's in all the baby formulas? So it is genetic. So, and then you're not breastfeeding because you're on some shite medication. So it's like it would be so convenient if it was all about me. It would be so convenient to say they've made a mistake in my case. Well, the problem is the mistake's being made with, I mean, I think we're looking at about 7 million people in the UK that are being prescribed these drugs. So currently the problem's with about 7 million people, maybe more, just in this country. And it's not cool. It's like, where do we draw the line? And then you see, I've got to be honest, people my age, I'm 44, nearly 45, and some of you have had children, and now your children are teens, and you just turned them in, and you got them all psychologically eyed up and pathologized up and diagnosed with whatever the fashionable diagnosis is at the moment. You think you're doing some good there, and they're taking these pills, you don't even know what they are. So my generation of parents failed badly, big time, shopping your kids to the services. Why? Because they bought the ticket. They bought the whole thing. Mummy's crazy, daddy's crazy. And it's like, so all these mental illnesses exist today, and your children have got a few, and you're on the spectrum. Oh, here you are. Here's one of your Jake Clark. Control room, have your live stream to get hold of you for a welfare check. You really. So now you sound like you're joking. Well, the thing is, you have to get blocked because you're actually, is very, very annoying. So I've hidden you, and your messages are hidden. Now you can come back in with Jake Clark with an E on the end, and I'll hide you from the channel a second time. You're making it sound like you're joking. And I think it might just be a bit boring. Why would they do that? Well, they're making money, aren't they? You see, look, if you diagnose someone as being hypermobile. That whatever connective tissue disorder it is, it could be Marfan's, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, maybe it's lupus, maybe it's MS or something. People require ongoing physiotherapy, and that costs money. But when you can just prescribe someone something to collect every month, it's filling someone else's pocket. And you don't recover from these diseases. They're progressive and they will get worse. And if you abandon people in the past about once every 3 months, that was about what I could afford. And then when I came into money at 35, I was going to see a chiropractor a lot, and he really helped me with my neck. And when I've seen him more recently, he puts acupuncture needles in my sacrum, but I've not seen him for so long because he costs a lot of money. So I'm looking at spending something in the region of £70 a week just to be seen, and I don't recover. It's maintenance. It makes my life so much easier, but I can't afford it. And I'll be honest, I've been referred to physiotherapy on the NHS, and they got me to touch my toes, and that was the end of the appointment. There was no follow-up letter. There was nothing. And then you've got on top of that the fact that I've moved around a lot. I've even been homeless for a year and was in a tent for 4 months, was on the street for about 6 weeks, was sofa surfing for a couple of months, and then the other half of that time I was in psych units. And so people are corruptible. I remember one time on that stay, they were wanting to do looking at my heart rate, and it came out all erratic. So she goes, oh, hang on. She ripped the paper off and then let it run for about 20 seconds and then went, there you go. I know those, is it called an EEG machine or something? You're supposed to let them run continuously for at least 5 minutes. So the original reading that came out, she didn't like it, and she threw it in the bin, and then she let it run for like 20 seconds, said, you're absolutely fine. I mean, somebody years ago used to use this term septic. So like someone's gone septic, and a lot of people have gone septic, and a lot of them seem to work in healthcare. I think, granted, I think a lot of them have been spoken to quite badly over the years. I think they work ridiculously long hours for blatantly not enough money, same as everyone. But when you're pushing 13-hour shifts and you've got no social life and you're being spoken to like shit at work, a lot of people turn into shitheads, and they do things that they shouldn't have done, and then it gets into a vicious cycle. And anyway, there's been plenty of social experiments that have shown that when you give the keys to one group of people and they are the jailers and the rest of the people in the group are the prisoners, within 24 hours there's abuse going on. In fact, the whole situation's just fallen to pieces. People don't like it when they're not allowed to leave the unit whenever they want, and you're being imprisoned without having committed any crime, and in fact you're very likely victim, whether historically or even more recently domestic violence, financial abuses, but you're the one that's being incarcerated, and it's really sad that everyone has bought this ticket so completely about mental illness, psychological, emotional, and people in some cases you're even scared to show your feelings, or you're having to turn up at work and you can't be honest about what's going on with you. I mean, look at the guys working at Amazon in the factory packing for Amazon, and someone died in the factory, and the people, his colleagues, his friends at work, were not given the day off. They had to carry on packing. So, oh crap, just dropped my drink. It's nearly empty anyway. So that's the kind of culture that we have going on, where that's inhumane. I haven't had an Amazon shopping account for some time, so well, as delightful as this is, I'm going to keep it short and let you know that yes, I am working with mental health services because there's no one else to work with. My mum lives in another country. I have a fairly inappropriate relationship with my brother when I was younger, and he's down as my next of kin. My dad used to be down as my next of kin. How convenient for him to be making decisions with psychiatrists behind my back. Really, really convenient for a child rapist to then be the adult next of kin for his victim and talking to the doctor behind your back, making decisions behind your back. It happens a lot. I'm not the only one. So Mr. Pickles says, hopefully you can expose this nationwide. Mr. Pickles, it's going to take a lot of people to speak out, not just me. I am a drop in the ocean. I am one of so many people, and you have to be quite level about it. You can't get, overexcited. You just have to be quite factual about that we were facing negligence, and a lot of women, black men, it doesn't matter who you are, older people are written off as having mental illness when there may be something wrong, and it's worth taking the time to find out what the actual needs are, because what we've got is a situation of people who are chronically ill and chained to these medications and they're not recovering, and so that speaks for itself. Why would you invest in an industry where nobody recovers? Lifelong clients popping pills. So it's going to take other people to talk out, add my voice, covering up child abuse, basically, writing people off with labels that don't really seem to fit or have any don't really relate to the causational factors, right? So if you're not treating the cause of the disease, you're not treating the disease, are you? So by all means, encourage you at home to vlog a bit about it, tag me, and then we'll try and send that around. Okay, send it around, just share your story in just a few minutes, take as long as you want. And because but I think it's going to get worse, but it doesn't mean that you can't speak out and warn other people. But I just think it's going to get more and more totalitarian. Nanobots tracing whether you've taken your meds or not. How about giving me a choice? And unfortunately, the problem with the education system where people are training in mental health is then they just see through those blinkers. That's all they can see. And isn't it so bizarre that, now there's a 10,000% increase in young people being diagnosed with manic depression? Probably those kids could really do with some physical health care. The drugs will not help them. Loads of love to you people. Thank you for being here on my hour of need. I really appreciate you all. I hope you enjoy my comedy. My pro MDMA playlist is ready for you, so you can just watch those 2 videos back to back. I do appreciate that the live stream, it did take probably 6 minutes to warm up, but that is what happens with live performance, and it's improv. And I will keep you posted about how I go with this pneumonia phase. It's almost like phase 3 or phase 4 now. Try to get a sputum sample done on the NHS. Try to see, because I'm been feeling very poorly, and really appreciate the medical support. And if I had the money, I would pay for it. And that's what I did when I came into that money, is I went and I got seen privately, and and it's just not been easy. And in actual fact, the rheumatologist that I went to see, he was working in the same private hospital as was the psychiatrist that had me on rotational admissions into psych unit at the QE2 when they still had a psych unit at the QE2 in Wellingar City, and that psychiatrist had me on a rotating door when my dad was still alive. He worked in the same place. But then a couple of years later, they were saying, there seems to be a very high correlation with autism, which is linked with child sexual abuse, but it's a buffer. You say you have autism rather than having to talk about a difficult situation. And we found this great big overcross with hypermobility and things. It's like, really? Yeah, I would have thought that probably, you're going to find there are physical things. And I've been in hospital with a woman who had an emergency with her ovary, and she took days, and they took days and days and days and days and days to simply refer her over to the general hospital to be examined over there. Then we were just sitting in the ward watching her suffering. So there are problems afoot. People, please do not pathologise your little children, your teenagers, or your adult children. Please remember that we are not in a theme park of constant pleasure and constant joy. We're here serving time. Time equals work, time equals hard, time equals graft. And you can't have hot without cold, and vice versa in this world. And you're doing a disservice to your loved ones, your wives, husbands, children. If you're going to pathologise their mental health, remember they're living in a toxic environment, often over-sexualised, saturated in alcohol, saturated in drugs, saturated in confusion and chaos, unemployment. Just so much is thrown at a human being, and even in the first 10 years of their lives could have gone through more than what you can imagine. So please do not pathologise people's mental health. Even if someone is suffering emotionally or struggling to think a thing through, there are a lot of illnesses going about, and I really encourage any parents to seek green doctors. There's lots about, they graduate every year from university. So, just don't run to the GP, don't run to the psychiatrist. But for a lot of us, this time has come very late because we don't have the money left to pay people to be seen properly. And it does make me laugh when I watch these ex-Twitter videos of them saying everybody eating organic. I mean, it's like, that's hilarious. Have you seen the cost of meat? Have you seen the cost of organic meat? Have you seen the cost of organic fruit and veg? So the split, the divide between the have and the have-nots is getting larger and larger day by day. So I'm at to everybody, and let's stay united. Let's keep focused on what unites us all. We are one people under one God, and treat each other accordingly, because that is a very unfashionable position to hold. I'm going to stick to it. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. By the way, your likes and things really help, and very often I'm seeing them at the end of the show and tell, and then they're disappearing, and my view count just doesn't grow after 24 hours or what, which is crazy. But I want you to enjoy the performing arts that I've been able to rustle up for you. They are experimental, they are rough around the edges. And for the record, I am trying to get a date with Kay Tempest, but these people are so annoying to get hold of. I think I just need to fess up about all this and be like, look, I'm not as straight as my mum knows about it. I think it's genetic. Should I go and speak to the police? You've got a massive car. I'm waving at the police officers. I love it. I fucking love the police, I've got to be honest. All right, guys, you're the best. You know that, all right? And I want to make a sticker for Gemma, who's not here right now, that says #twruk, and then it says Scotland's biggest fan. And the size of their vehicle, like, you'll catch it in a minute. Look at the size of it, it's huge. So you've got to keep these guys on side, do you know what I mean? Otherwise they'll run you down. Should we go and see Soul Shack as well before I go? I just walk, it's getting harder and harder to walk. Like my hip balls roll in their socket really painfully. So one way or another I'm grinding around, grinding down my ankles, grinding down my knees. Shelton's not here. I look at Shelton's menu, it's back to front. Sheldon or Shelton, I'm not sure. I think it's Sheldon. Sheldon. Shell, I call him Shell. The Soul Shack. He's not there. He's not there at the moment. Bye everybody, thanks for being here. You support me a lot. And Jake Clark, you've been banned, but I know you still have another profile, so one of you's still active. All right, love you loads. Bye.